by Dennis J. Courtney, M.D., Director of the Courtney Medical Group, located at 3075 Washington Road in McMurray, Pennsylvania. For more information or to make an appointment, call 724-942-3002. That's 724-942-3002 for Dennis J. Courtney, M.D.
Good morning, everybody. Good morning, everybody, and welcome to AM Impact on Your Health. AM Impact on Your Health, where every day our goal is to have you learn at least one thing to help you live better and longer. AM Impact on Your Health, well, it's heard every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday from 8 to 9 o'clock. I'm Dr. Dennis Courtney, and I'm with you each and every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday from 8 to 9. AM Impact on Your Health, where each day you'll find current medical news, knowledgeable guests, fascinating health topics, and of course, where we always encourage you to call in to join in. Today, well, some time has passed, about a month, and about a month left to go, when they're going to premiere the, Cut, Poison, Burn movie, The Life of Thomas Navarro. The premiere out in the West Coast was brought to our attention by the father, Jim Navarro. We're going to be with Jim this morning, finding out what things are shaping up, how they're shaping up for the release of that documentary, as well as some other peripheral items. Having Beth Clay on the show last week, we talked extensively about Thomas Navarro, and some other questions came to mind. So today, we're going to give Jim a call and find out what's new on the Thomas Navarro scene with the release and upcoming of the interesting documentary, 87-minute documentary. And of course, Jim Navarro will be able to give you the most recent updates on the status of the premiere. In the course of our discussion with Jim today, you want to call up to ask a question of him, make a comment. That number, as always, will be 412-825-6262, 412-825-6262. The young boy, Thomas Navarro, is being immortalized, literally, by the release of his saga. We'll relive a little bit of that today as we march through our discussion with Jim. Now, up and coming on the calendar as things are shaping up for the rest of the month, turns out Cass Ingram is a guest coming to town, coming to Pittsburgh. They tell me he's been here before, about 4 years ago now. Cass Ingram is in Europe. No one seems to be able to get a hold of him for the moment. As soon as I do, I'll try to schedule him, by the way, for that other encounter we'll have with him. So look, as it shapes up right now, next Thursday at the Freedom of Choice in Cancer Therapy group up there at the Days Inn, just south of Butler, about a mile on the right-hand side. 7 o'clock, Cass Ingram's going to be here, and you don't want to miss it. We'll try. It looks as though we're sort of doing it in the dark right now without any direct contact with Cass himself, but knowing him, he should be opening up the schedule. We'll try to have him on board with us on Monday to let him tell you, give you a little bit of advanced information on what he intends to talk about when he's here on Thursday. So, coming to Pittsburgh, Cass Ingram, you know him very well, being on this show, as well as many other shows here in the KHB family. I flip the page and take a look into October. Dr. Hannah is coming back. She brought to you her product, NasoPure. Nasal washings. A lot of my patients are telling me that it's working well for them. We'll have her tell us a little more about NasoPure and this nasal washing procedure. If you missed it, you'll probably want to catch her. This will be then for the first time for you, but if you caught it, you'll want to sort of tune in and find out how it's working for everybody else out there. I'm guessing we're going to get some phone calls on that day. We are smack dab in the middle of when that fountain turns pink on October 1st. It signals the kickoff of the Breast Cancer Awareness Month. In keeping with that, we'll have a lot of discussion, I'm sure, going around about mammography, about thermography, PET scanning, and all the various ways of trying to forecast and foretell the issue of breast cancer And on the 11th, we're going to have the girls, I call them the girls, from Three Rivers Thermography. They come to my office twice a month. They hit many other offices throughout the Pittsburgh area, so with one phone call here or to the girls themselves, you should be able to find out a geographically pleasing area that you can start and get the thermograms yourself and begin to sort of break the chains of the mammography scare. Literally, it goes through phases where mammography turns out to be the greatest thing since sliced bread, and another month later, it's the worst thing that ever was invented. You know where I fall on the subject. We're going to bring this subject up quite a bit in the up-and-coming month, but the girls from Three Rivers are going to be here on the 11th. And then, although I'm waiting for some information on him, a gentleman by the name of Bill Henderson wrote a book on cancer cures, is going to be coming to Pittsburgh to be the featured speaker at the Freedom of Cancer Therapy group on the 21st of October. That's in keeping with their vow to be with you on the third Thursday of the month. So the schedule will fill up a little more as time moves on, but that's what we have right now. We're passing it on to you. Got some slots open up. ECP, by the way, we've got a pretty hectic schedule with ECP, but some slots are opening up for the fall. Would encourage everybody out there who's thinking about their cardiovascular issues themselves and what to do about them and sort of how best to handle cardiovascular disease, one of these major inroads into improving your cardiovascular situation is through something that we've been promoting for a long time now, called external counterpulsation. We offer it here, have been doing so for quite a while. As I mentioned it to you, we've got some good slots opening up, and those of you who are out there, and you know who you are, who have called and have expressed interest in this, just to pass on to you, this is now the time to give us a call, and we'll get you slotted, as well as we do so many other. We've got a major focus here in the office. We've had that focus on cardiovascular disease for a long time. The origination, probably, of moving into the alternative realm was prompted by many cardiovascular issues. In particular, the first one brought to my attention way back in the mid-90s was that of something called chelation therapy. That's what got the ball rolling. We still practice chelation therapy here, whether it's in the form of intravenous or oral. You may want to consider initiating that kind of a program for yourself too, and certainly any time is an okay time for that. The adjustment and the correction of various risk factors. Geez, I can't tell you how many times I've done shows on and lectures on what used to be called the 8 tests. The 8 tests that you had to have in order to predict your cardiovascular status. They were 8 risk factors. They still remain to be 8, except they added 1 to them, and now there's 9. So there now are 9 blood tests that we say you just got to have them to know what your cardiovascular status is, and how to improve your cardiovascular status with respect to changing every single one of them for the better, and not use one single pharmaceutical medication to do so. Anyway, quite proud of our cardiovascular offerings here. Hope you take us up on our offer to you. And with those open slots coming up for ECP, hope you take us up on those offers too. Let's do this. Why don't we take a break? And in the interim, we're going to dial up Dad, talking about Jim Navarro. He should be filling us in on what's new in the website. Last thing I checked, it was revamped and revised on September 4th. So there's a fresh website, fresh information. We're plastered all over that website. We're going to ask him about that, as well as any other questions you may have for him. We'll be right back in a moment with Jim Navarro.
This is SJ Courtney, MD. Have you become confused about how best to manage your health? It's no wonder. It seems that every time you turn on the television or radio, another expert has yet another suggestion for you to follow that seems to be reasonable enough that no matter how dutifully you follow the instruction, it just doesn't quite produce the results that you are looking for. If this confusion sounds familiar to you, give us a call at the Center for Complementary Health, where we'll make some sense of the confusion based on a blending of traditional and alternative medicine that we've been perfecting over the last 7 years. We offer metabolic nutrition testing, immune system repair, natural hormone replacement therapy, stimulation therapy, cutting-edge bonding correction, and a host of other safe and effective alternative therapies.
Dentistry Courtney, MD, located at 3075 Washington Road in McMurray. Call 724-942-3002.
Have you been to the doctor lately? Was fatigue top of your complaint list? Even if your doctor asks you what you eat, the recommended 5 servings of fruits and vegetables a day is a dream in your busy schedule. What if you learned of a product 5 years in formulation that delivers 5 servings of fruits and minerals in just 1 ounce? That's right, it's Through the Spirit. The blessings of Through the Spirit are now formulated into a delicious whole fruit puree product rich in antioxidants and minerals. Your health is more than just a test result. It's a balance of physical, spiritual, and emotional factors. You work regularly to strengthen your faith. Let Through the Spirit help cover your nutritional needs in a convenient and cost-effective ounce a day. Call 1-800-442-3793 for a special promotional offer. Through the Spirit, a blessing for your good health. Through the Spirit, 5 servings of fruits and minerals with no added sugars. That's 1-800-442-3793 for your good health. Call them now, 1-800-442-3793.
Good morning, everybody. Welcome back once again to an Impact on Your Health here on a Monday morning version of the show. Hope your weekend went well for you. Big week up and coming around here. We'll be bringing you some great guests, none greater than the one we're going to start with here on this Monday morning. You know him very well. You've known him for years. The plight of both his family, and in particular his son, is now going to be portrayed in a documentary. You heard about it before. We're going to update you on the release of Cut, Poison, Burn. I think I've got 3 in the right order at least. Anyway, film release going to be a documentary, 87-minute documentary about the life of Thomas Navarro. We were there at the time when young Thomas was going through his plight, and now, here it is many years later, and a new segment of his entire story has now unfolded. We got Dad with us, Jim Navarro, been the guiding force in this family since that time. Let's bring him aboard right now and say good morning and welcome back, Jim. Glad you're aboard with us.
Dennis, how are you doing?
Good. The last time, evidently, you're not a soft-spoken guy, but for some reason, I like scream and you don't. And I can remember phone calls from and emails from people saying I couldn't hear your guest. So you got to speak up today, Jim.
Okay.
I can't believe that I'm having you speak up because you're about as most forceful, the most forceful speaking voice I think I've ever heard. But you were mellow and soft. All right. So speaking of the phone today, my friend, look.
I'll have to get a little more coffee if it is.
All right. Get a little more of that stuff. I thought about you all week last week. We had Beth Clay on the show, and you know that when we first talked, that was a name for the past. I hadn't spoken with Beth for all these years, and then, of course, you've maintained contact with Beth. She verified that, and she's fully aware of a lot of the events surrounding the up-and-coming weeks and months that maybe she might play a role in. But with her on the show and talking about this issue about young Thomas, I just begged the issue with me, saying, hey, get Jim back on the phone. A month has passed. Things have changed. I checked the website out, Jim. It's clean. It's fresh. It was redone. I think September 4th was your last update on it.
Right.
So let's...
We've actually done another one since then.
Have you really?
Just have to double check the date. Right. Sometimes we get busy working on it in the evenings, and by the time we're done, it's 3 hours this morning, and we forget to change the date. So if that is the case, I'll correct it immediately.
All right, so in a nutshell, as best you can, because I'm sure there's some listeners out there that really We're talking so friendly-like, and a lot of Pittsburghers know you, but there'll be some people who won't know a thing about this issue. Give us a nutshell version of this entire issue that got kicked off back at the turn of the century there, when your young boy Thomas was afflicted with a cancer that has now led to well, a whole bunch has happened. Let's say in the meantime, give us a nutshell version of what had transpired.
A nutshell version would be that Thomas was killed in September of '99. We discovered that it was medulloblastoma, which was the brain tumor at the base of the cerebellum. The initial tumor was large enough to be splitting his head in 4 places. We did an emergency surgery. They immediately wanted to follow up with radiation and chemo. My wife, having a medical background, is a combat medic in the Army, said absolutely not. The fight began, so to speak, between conventional and non-conventional, and as a result, we were charged with child abuse, medical neglect, not giving in, and as a result, we had a bit of a great race going on between 2 countries and 26 states in an effort to keep Thomas alive.
Yeah, the conventional medical community said you must have your child receive the therapy that we say that they could have. That's really the rub here, that you always knew you wanted to pursue Dr. Brzezinski's work and anti-neoplastons, that was the therapy you wanted for your child, and you were not allowed to make that choice. Elaborate on that a bit. It certainly is the focus of this film that's going to be coming out here, but it is the crux of the issue. Explain that dastardly issue, would you please?
Well, yeah, quite simply, and it came as a shock to us, Dennis, that in the United States of America, land of the free and home of the brave, you as Americans do not have the legal right to pick your doctors or your treatment. Your children can be taken against your will, treated against your will, and if they are permanently impaired or die, legally, you have no recourse civilly or criminally against the doctors, the hospitals, the pharmaceutical companies, or any caregivers, because the way the law is written, they quote-unquote acted in the best interest of your child. So they make the mess and leave you to clean it up, so to speak. And this is something that we didn't want for Thomas, because as a result of using radiation on him as a young child at 4 years old, his growth process would have stopped right there and then. So, for example, had he not known how to walk, talk, read, or write, he would never have learned that, because radiation causes immediate intellectual drop. His IQ points drop 10 points, plus additional several, well, it depends on the child, but it can be up to 4 points a year.
I never heard that stat before.
Yes. And that was our big bone of contention, the rub, so to speak, that kept us from wanting to do it. Because even at 4, we had diligently worked with him to learn how to read and write, and so on and so forth, because my wife Donna and I tend to be a bit on the quote-unquote radical side, in that we believe in teaching our own children. We homeschool. We still homeschool Patrick, who's now 13. As a result, we are allowed to keep him busy with other activities. For example, he's 6 badges away from being an Eagle Scout at 13 years of age.
Oh, hey, that's quite a accomplishment.
And we keep him busy with all sorts of stuff. Versus, kids his age in school, I was shocked when I went to a parent-teacher day and realized a lot of them couldn't read and write.
Huh.
Form a sentence.
Yeah. Yeah, there's not talking about another area that needs to be exposed. This issue of our public education system, but that's another matter altogether. That's another matter altogether.
Yes, sir, it is.
So there you were back then, and you really, and I think just about every parent listening to us today may be shocked to learn that as you had to learn in a very difficult way, that you weren't allowed to make the medical choices that you wanted to proceed with for your child. You're allowed to do it if you're an adult. You can select for you. I know that.
Yes, however, let me caveat that by saying under certain circumstances, there are recorded cases where doctors have actually gone to court and had their patient declared mentally incompetent. And treated them against their will. Again, you have to look at the bottom line. What does the doctor stand to make?
Well, that'd be a nice little loophole there to declare you mentally incompetent and therefore unable to make a decision, huh?
Correct. And if you remember back a few years, the Parker Jensen case in Utah, where a young boy of 13 was supposedly had Ewing sarcoma, and the government was basically treating his parents the same way as us, chasing him around, harassing him. As a result, at the end of that, when again with best help, we were able to get him to return home, get the warrants lifted, have another set of specialists at him. Come to find out, he didn't even have Ewing sarcoma. The lab tech had mistakenly put his name on somebody else's film. So here they would have treated him against his parents' will and killed him or given him cancer and would have been completely protected in doing so. So as a result of that, again, because it was election time in Utah, new legislation was introduced. Now, granted, only on a state basis, not on a national. But again, it's a beginning, and that is that the doctors have to go to court and prove beyond a shadow of a doubt that the parents are mentally incapable of making life and death decisions for their child. They have to be declared mentally incompetent or some type of special needs criteria to where the parents just don't get it. And that's a tough nut to crack.
Yeah, it really is a tough nut to crack. And of course, you had a scamper all over. I think you said 2 countries and 26 states. Is that where you finally counted up as the toll that you had to go through in order to avoid the onerous claw of the law on you?
Well, and not only that, Dennis, but on the 2 occasions in Arizona as well as Texas where they tried to take Thomas, where they tried to build a case against us, they had a really hard time doing it. In that we were spending somewhere between $12,000 and $15,000 a month just maintaining Thomas, medical visits, his diet, therapists, occupational therapists to work with him, to check him, basically maintain his wellness, bringing in doctors and nurses from the various states. So they had a real hard time making the point that it was medical neglect. Now, had we been sitting somewhere in a teepee, smoking the sacred herb, they'd have made their case. But we were diligently working every step of the way, maintaining his wellness, his safety, and his happiness while we tried to desperately get into Dr. Brzezinski's clinic, which we knew initially they wouldn't let us into. In fact, when we initially called, they told us we couldn't treat him because of the FDA criteria. And I said, well, stand by, we're coming anyway, which in the beginning they didn't understand, but basically what I was doing was creating a paper trail. It's like, okay, we're here, examine him. Now, you put in writing, you cannot treat him and why. And that was the basis that I took to Washington when I began demanding congressional hearings and trying to change the laws where the parents would again have the right to take care of their children.
Now, it's an interesting thing that maybe the public isn't aware of. But okay, so there's Stanislaw Brzezinski. He develops this treatment for neurological tumors. He gets tremendous success with this approach. However, he's persecuted for a number of years before the Thomas Navarro saga ever comes into his purview, so much so that he has to go to court, and he wins against the FDA on numerous occasions, correct?
That's correct.
So he wins these cases. It gets to the point, if I can remember this correctly, he beat up the the FDA so bad, they finally say, okay, you have a therapy that we don't really believe in, but you know what? We're tired of getting beat up by you and your lawyers, so we're going to allow you to use your therapy. However, and here's the rub, only you're allowed to legally use your therapy that we've challenged so many times now, and you beat us up and we've lost in court, but the only people you're allowed to use it on are people who have already failed conventional treatment. Now, isn't that the raw rub? Isn't that it?
Yes, as a matter of fact, I believe in playing cards referred to as stacking the deck. They take patients who have first gone through conventional radiation, chemo, and failed, and the one point you may or may not have been aware of, they must also have a recurrent tumor. So not only do they have to fail therapy, but the very treatment itself has to have created a new cancer within the patient, which everyone should know, and if they don't, I'm here to tell you. Once a new cancer has been created by the chemotherapy or the radiation itself, it can no longer be stopped, and it grows at a very rapid rate. In fact, that is what killed Thomas. His medulloblastoma evolved into what is referred to as leptomeningeal sarcoma, which is actually created by chemotherapy, which he was forced to do in the state of New York.
In order to comply with the FDA's rule, which any neoplastons, the Brzezinski therapy, could only be used if and when all other therapies had failed, and it's because of that that you had to subject your son to a therapy you didn't want to get to the therapy that you did. Isn't that?
Well, actually, what happened was the doctors got so nervous with the idea that we had not done conventional that one of the doctors came in and said, okay, here's the deal. We will not discharge your son from our hospital until you submit him to this. They did lower the dosage from 10 cycles of chemo to 3. However, on the third cycle, again referring to Dr. Paz-Dort, the FDA, who had lost all the original challenges to get into Brazil, when I read the letter to him from the hospital, the first words out of his mouth were, oh my God, they overdosed him. So they deliberately got their jab in. Now, proving that is the rub, but the point being is they knew they'd never get another chance to submit him to therapy, so they made sure by giving him too much. As a result, literally within just a matter of a couple of weeks, when we had to go to Syracuse in upstate New York, because, again, we were doing a monthly head, neck, and spine, with and without contrast, the MRI, to monitor any potential growth. The doctor looked at me and said, take your son home and make him comfortable. And I said, well, what do you mean? He said, he will be gone within 14 days. And I said, well, how can you tell? And he looked down at the ground, and in a very broken voice, we stopped counting tumors at 50. He's not going to make it. I said, what do you mean? You didn't have him 2 weeks ago, 3 weeks ago? And he said, he has leptomeningeal sarcoma. And I said, what is that? He says, it's a different type of cancer. And I said, well, what's causing it? And he just started breathing really heavy and still looking at the ground. And I said, doctor, look me in the eye and tell me that you did not cause leptomeningeal sarcoma by giving him chemotherapy. And his eyes started to well up with tears, and he looked at the ground and he said, I'm so sorry.
Yeah.
And he walked out of the room. So they knew they had murdered my son, essentially. But it was just another day at the office for them. At least there'd be a payday.
I can absolutely feel for how you must have felt, how enraged you must have felt about an entire... Okay, so you subjected your son to a therapy you didn't want. It produced multiple what'd you call them again?
Yeah, it always takes a while to learn it. Leptomeningeal sarcoma.
All right, I got it now. Leptomeningeal sarcomas. And it was then and only then that, and way down the road, a road that you didn't want to travel that far, that you were finally allowed legally to go ahead to the Brzezinski Clinic down in Houston, admittedly way, way further down the road than you ever wanted to be. And it was truly because he got there so late that that great therapy never had an opportunity to do what it had demonstrated it could do and potentially could have done for Thomas. Fair enough. All right, well.
And as a matter of fact, it was about 18 and a half months into the battle that this occurred. And I went straight to Washington afterwards and spoke with Congressman Burton. He was absolutely afraid that this had happened. And as a result, he immediately called FDA and Health and Human Services and everybody else on the payroll and basically said, you will approve him for therapy or you're all going to be out of a job. And within about 5 minutes, Thomas was cleared to go to Dr. Brzezinski. And I remember bantering back and forth with the congressman. I said, are you sure? Because, you know, money's starting to run low and I can't fly all the way to Houston from Washington if, in fact, he's not approved. And he just looked at me and he put his arms around me and gave me a big hug and said, son, you take him. If there's any problem, you call me. I guarantee you they'll treat him. And we got him on a plane. Donna, Patrick, Thomas all got on a plane, went to Houston. And they were picked up by car and taken straight to the clinic while I stayed in Washington to testify before Congress. As soon as my testimony was done, I joined the family.
Joined the family.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Interesting. Beth Clay, when she was on our show last week, brought out a fact that I knew to be true. I had just forgotten it. And as it turns out, I'm guessing that it's been extremely helpful in the meantime. Here's the fact. She said, well, you know that at the time this was all going on, literally a film crew was traveling around with the Navarro family. Everywhere they went, they showed up with an entire film crew right there with them. And, of course, then that enabled you to document all of what has happened, did happen, what happened at that time, in a pretty professional way that most other people don't have that opportunity to do. Explain this thing about the film crew, because I think that is so fascinating, and it turns out it gave you what you needed to get this documentary put together.
Yeah, basically what had happened was at one of the very, very early clinics that we had gone to with Thomas, there was a gentleman there that was there with a friend of his who was in treatment. And he had told the story how he worked as a film director, producer. Of course, all the Hollywood crowd, they've basically cut their teeth by working a little bit of directing, a little bit of producing, a little bit of filmmaking, a little bit of camera work. So he had enough of a resume to say, you know, actually how it started is Thomas, rather, was sitting in a little lawn chair, and he sat and just started visiting with him. He was so taken by how matter-of-fact he was, precocious, and driven by what he was doing that he initially approached Donna, I was still in Washington, and said, I would love to film his story, tell his story. And I was initially hesitant at first, then I finally agreed to it. And so basically from that point forward, he and two other camera people literally followed us everywhere we went. Whether we were sitting on the foot of the bed doing IV treatments, whether we were in Ronald McDonald's house, whether we were meeting with members of Congress or members of the Senate or other doctors, hospitals, you name it. Yeah, everything was on limits except the bathroom.
That's a little onerous. I mean, if you're the conventional medical community being assaulted, literally, you took them on, and everywhere that you had contact with them, you were able to document that interaction. Is that right?
Right. And basically what we did is, especially in the medical community, for example, basically when they first saw the cameras, of course there was always the hesitation. So I said, look, we are documenting his journey because reality is, according to you, he will not survive this. Therefore, we want to remember every moment of his life that we can. We didn't make as much deal out of the fact that we were going to do it for documentary purposes. And I said, where you're uncomfortable, if we could at least leave the camera up in the corner of the room, like shooting B footage, without the cameraman, but the camera's still running. We would really appreciate it, and we always got their permission in writing so that they couldn't back out later. So, for example, when there were ugly events, when there were things that went wrong, and there were a few, it was all trapped on film.
Wow.
And so then the journey began after Thomas' passing to tell his story, to tell the journey. To tell of the corruption of the cancer industry, to tell of the directors at the FDA standing in the hallways outside of Congress trying to pump secret deals. Well, Mr. Navarro, we've decided we'll allow your son treatment if you just don't go in there and testify.
This is all recorded.
It's recorded on film. And so, basically with my background, I basically, if you'll pardon my French, said, well, doom on you. It's not about my son anymore. It's about all the hundreds of thousands of kids he's been murdering for the last 90 years.
Well, that really puts it entire. And I wasn't thinking about this, and you hadn't brought it up, but when Beth mentioned that, the whole thing, I took a flashback. I went, oh, wow, this could be the documentary of a lifetime that was never done before ever because nobody had that kind of foresight, and that turned out to be a bit of magic that then said when you went to make a documentary, you had to take and throw things out because you didn't have enough time to put all that you could into this thing. You had to cut and edit so much out. I'm imagining these 87 minutes, and that's how long this is, right, Jim?
Right. And it started life as a 2.5-year journey. But so one lesson I learned, too, especially before Congress and the Senate, and this is a bit disheartening, Dennis, it doesn't matter how important your need, how urgent your request, if you can't say it in a page, 2 pages, to them, it's a waste of time to listen or to read. So I got to thinking, all right, a terrible injustice has been done, resulting in the death of my son. How do I get this story out and at the same time make it short enough to hold people's attention? And the way you do that is you basically let both sides of the aisle be heard and run Thomas as the quote-unquote spine of the story. So amidst the good and the bad, the little boy is dying. He's losing time. He's losing the battle. And what I have been told thus far is that the few people that have been privy to see it prior to the release, for the sake of final editing and such, walked out of it so bloody angry they were fit to die the rest of the day. They were enraged by what they saw. And in fact, one woman said, "You mean to tell me this poor child suffered this way and died and nothing's been done about it? No laws have been changed? That is criminal." But it's true. It's very true. Nothing has changed. And in fact, sadly, I've discovered that since the passing of Thomas, which will be 9 years in November, that the number of dead as a result of treatment has increased. It hasn't gone down. It's increased. and nobody cares. And now in this age of, let's just call it political awareness, where we were seeing the true level of apathy and contempt for the American people that exists in Washington, I think it's time for a million-man march to bring about the truth in cancer treatment. You know, all these celebrities go on TV because they're famous, they have notoriety, and oh yeah, my brother had cancer, my mom had cancer, my dad had cancer. Oh, out you there in American heartland, you need to open your paycheck, spend more money to do more cancer research. Well, that's hogwash, because it's the same old crap, if you'll pardon my French, with a new name put on.
Yeah, talking about the treatments that they come up with. Sure.
Yes, and that's another thing we discovered was the fact that, you know, when the patent runs out in 10 years, they repackage it, rename it, and it's the same old garbage, and they get a new patent life on it, and they continue to garner the lion's share of the profit. For what? Poisoning our loved ones?
Hear you. All right, I can see we got the emotion whipped up in you again. Let's do this, Jim. We're going to take a short break, ladies and gentlemen. We'll come right back with Jim. I'm going to get some questions about this, the premiere coming up. There was some more information I noticed on the website about it. And then ask you, too, about how you see this Thomas Navarro Patients' Rights Act taking shape after the release of this, because I'm sure you have a plan in mind, and maybe you can discuss it with us. Okay, Jim?
Oh, yes.
Okay. Folks, you got one mad, angry father here. You can see why, but this one isn't going to be, well, this is just the beginning, folks. More on the matter. In a moment, we'll be back with Jim Navarro.
Want to help your family eat healthier? It's important to discuss this way. How about some real nutritional power? If your family has the typical American palate for fries, pizza, and burgers, giving your family the blessing of good nutrition is a struggle. Fruit of the Spirit is the answer for your family's nutritional needs. Fruit of the Spirit is an all-natural, whole fruit puree made from fresh fruits native to the Holy Land with alkalizing minerals. Fruit of the Spirit was 5 years of formulation and work of a team of top nutritional experts with independent science to confirm its antioxidant power. 1 ounce a day provides the equivalent of 5 servings of fruits and minerals. Fruit of the Spirit is convenient, affordable, and delicious. Even your picky family will sing the praises of Fruit of the Spirit. Give your loved ones the blessing of good nutrition. Call 1-800-442-3793 for a special promotional offer. Fruit of the Spirit, a blessing for your good health. That's 1-800-442-3793. Call them now. 1-800-442-3793.
This is Dennis J. Courtney, MD. Have you become confused about how best to manage your health? It's no wonder. It seems that every time you turn on the television or radio, another expert has yet another suggestion for you to follow that seems to be reasonable enough, but no matter how dutifully you follow the instruction, it just doesn't quite produce the results that you are looking for. If this confusion sounds familiar to you, give us a call at the Center for Complementary Health, where we'll make some sense of the confusion based on a blending of traditional and alternative medicine that we've been perfecting over the last 7 years. We offer metabolic nutrition testing, immune system repair, natural hormone replacement therapy, chelation therapy, cutting-edge allergy correction, and a host of other safe and effective alternative therapies.
Dennis J. Courtney, MD, is located at 3075 Washington Road in McMurray. Phone 724-942-3002.
Hey, good morning and welcome back once again to AIM Impact on Your Health. Here in a Monday morning version of the show, and we're kicking off the week with, well, a lot of emotion today. We are reliving a bit of a saga of a family with a young boy, Thomas, who really, his story is going to be told over and over again in a documentary that's going to be released up and coming. We've got Dad with us today, Jim Navarro, the patriarch of the family, and as you can see, Jim has quite a bit to say on the subject. Jim, you back with us, my friend?
I am, sir.
Okay, so the premiere, this documentary which is loaded with film footage that no other, I just can't see any other situation that it would have allowed for the ability to have everything already on film. You had it there. You put this together. You got Peter Coyote, whatever his name is, to narrate it. When is it going to be released? Once again, let everybody know.
Well, we're going to be starting with its very first release. It's going to be on October 8th in Mill Valley Film Festival, and that is going to be just south of San Francisco, about 25 miles. The first showing is going to be at the Christopher B. Smith Raphael Film Center, and it's going to be in theater number 3, and then it's going to repeat again on the 10th. The first showing's at 6, second showing's at 8:15, and that will be in Film Center number 2. And the Mill Valley Film Festival is in the top 10 film festivals in the world. So that'll be the first show.
So that's the kickoff in that city. I understand by looking at the website, this is intended to move to other cities afterwards. Am I right about that?
You are absolutely correct, Dennis. It will then be scheduled closer to the end of the year and first of the year. Note the plotting and keeping here, brother. It'll move to L.A., it'll move to New York, it'll move to Houston, it'll end up in Washington, D.C., at which time, mid to late January, we will reintroduce the new and renamed bill. It will be the Thomas Navarro Patient Rights Act. No longer will the FDA be in the title. I don't think they deserve it, to be honest with you. And it'll just bear my son's name. And again, the main thing that it will do is restore the right to mom and dad to choose therapy and doctors for their own child should their child sadly be diagnosed with a life-changing or life-taking illness, specifically that which is fatal, cancer. And so as a result, parents' rights will be restored, which should have never been taken away. But they will be restored, and then hopefully at that point in time we'll see a dramatic change, in my opinion, almost a paradigm change in how we deal with cancer.
Now, you intend for this the Patients' Rights Act to be introduced in the new up-and-coming Congress, like the one that will...
That is correct.
Okay.
January.
It may be pretty friendly.
They'll be in recess. Remember, they'll be in recess for Christmas.
All right.
So basically what I have to do, and this is the lesson Buchanan that, Beth Clay has been like a sister to me and very gentle in her. Now, Jim, it isn't quite done this way, but, you know what I'm saying? Of course, I'm in there like a Marine taking another beachhead.
Yeah, bet.
in my family. And, as the old joke goes, when you positively have to have it destroyed overnight or the next one's free. I'm in there ready to take government on, and it just continually brings me back to something that Donna, my wife, is always quoting that was said once upon a time that people forget. And that is, unless we put medical freedom into the Constitution, the time will come when medicine will become an undercover dictatorship. And that's a quote of Dr. Benjamin Rush, who not only was one of the signers of the Declaration of Independence, he also served as the Surgeon General of George Washington's Army. And we often forget things like that.
So Beth has been hopefully going to be guiding this thing.
Yeah, she's been my mentor in a lot of ways. Like I said, she's just an incredible woman. I think probably the only person that I've ever met busier than me.
Yeah, and she's so capable, and oh,
yeah.
It was the right person to move outside of being in government to now being a lobbyist herself. she knows how to shape legislation.
Oh, she knows how to get them to pay attention for sure.
No,
Because there's so much involved, especially when you're dealing with people that treat their time in Washington more like a vacation than doing work. And therein lies the problem. And I've seen it with my own eyes. Sadly, they're more concerned with where the next party's going to be than taking care of the needs of the people. And they're getting rich on the sweat and toil of others through their lecturing circuits or their new and different quote-unquote books, their book signings. It's just, to me, government is not taken serious anymore. And as a result, we in the working class, when we have needs to be dealt with, we suffer accordingly, as in the case of my son. The entire time I was in Washington, Thomas went with me. So there he was in his little slack shirt, tie, going around meeting people and smiling and shaking hands. You know, people would look at him and go, "Oh, little boy, what's your name?" He goes, "My name is Thomas, and I'm dying of cancer. Can you help me?" And they'd be startled, and they'd step back, and yet do nothing. Very few cared enough to try to do something. And of those people, Beth was one of them.
Well,
and the congressman that she worked for at the time.
Dan Burton. Sure.
Burton was also, in fact, he was basically Thomas's champion and introduced the bill.
Well, let's ask this question because,
sure.
Okay, it's going to start out in the West Coast. Everything does, by the way. It all starts, no matter what it is, it all starts in the West. But then it's going to other cities, some big ones. And from what I'm now envisioning, the film itself is what the public really is going to be able to get a hold of to become as enraged as one could become and seeing on what the status is today if a family is put in a similar situation. So my question is, when do we get to see the film? When is it releasable that we can have? We get a copy of this? Is it purchasable?
Dennis, in fact, that's a good question, and I apologize for stepping over that. But basically what's going to happen is after these various premieres, and they're in these specific cities logistically for a reason, then there will be a general release where it will show in theaters across the United States, and copies of it will be available because there will be obviously DVD sales for interested individuals and groups that want to show it. Let's say, for example, and there's a bit of a shocker here, we're going to be showing it at a group of cancer patients who are quote-unquote cancer survivors here at an American Cancer Society group meeting. So I don't know how well it's going to be received, when people who basically lost the battle with cancer realizing after the fact through a documentary about a 4-year-old child that they've been lied to.
Yeah, I wonder how that audience is going to receive it. I think they're going to receive it and become angry just like everybody else.
Yes.
Even more so.
More so, because they've wasted their time, their resources, the very strength of their being, trying to combat something that basically their medical professionals had no intention of winning. It's almost like entering a 3-legged horse into a horse race.
Well, it'll be a hit in the gut to families who have gone through this from the same side and perspective that you have, and did not have the moxie to break the chains that were binding them, and literally got pushed down a pathway to move into therapies that ultimately, claim their child. And I think they're going to be completely enraged. The general public's going to be enraged. I believe they all have to be in order for this act to fly. I think it should fly through Congress. If enough people get a chance to see this thing, I can envision a country calling up their legislator and say, "Hey, you passed this act. I think you need it."
One of the things we're doing is when it comes to Washington, we are extending an invitation to all members of the Congress and the Senate to come see it. In fact, they will be able to come see it for free. All they have to do is show up. And then what we will do is, of course, have the media blitz outside after the fact, and where the media can walk up to the various members of Congress and say, well, what did you think of this film? Now, what are you going to do about it? We understand that the parents of this poor child have reintroduced legislation. Are you going to be a co-sponsor? Are you going to stand in opposition? And then basically send the media to the people that didn't show up to see it, saying, well, Congressman so-and-so, they had a showing, you were invited for free, why didn't you show up? What was more important than hearing the story of a child that died?
Well, we'll get into this at the turn of the year, because I think that's when you'll be smack dab in the middle of it. We're working our way to premieres. Now we got bongos in the background. We're probably going to check in with you, Jimmy, sometime around October 7th. What do you think?
That'd be fine.
Okay.
I'd be more than happy to, not having seen it myself, if you want to check in on the 8th or the 9th.
That's what we'll do. Okay.
We can talk, and then what I'm going to be doing also is I'm going to be, because they're in the process right now of actually creating the DVDs and creating other copies of the film in foreign language for international distribution. I will send you a DVD for your own viewing.
That's what I wanted to hear. Okay.
Perhaps you can get
a Pittsburgh viewing, yeah.
There you go, and we'll get a theater and open it up to the local folks. And
all right.
My wife Donna is a Pennsylvania girl. Bring her out there, and we'll.
That's what we'll close on today. All right, Jimmy. Good luck. Have a great month. Be talking to you beginning of the next month. Let's work on a Pittsburgh viewing. Until then, this is Dr. Dennis Courtney with James Navarro saying so long for AIM Impact on Your Health.